I'm going to continue my video series on Henry Ward Beecher and his sermons by discussing Ephesians 5:11. At first, this message may seem confusing, but I implore you to be patient. Now, here are some facts that you may have not thought about or may not have considered. Flowers bloom in the daytime, and trees don't grow as well in the shade. And let me tell you something, plants will always grow towards the sunlight. Don't believe me? Take a potted plant, put it in front of a wall, but make sure there's a window, say about an inch or two away from the potted plant. Then feed it some water and some plant food, and then watch it grow for about 7 to 10 days. After a while, the branches will start growing towards the window. Why is that? Because it will grow towards the sunlight. That's true. You don't believe me? You can read all kinds of gardening books. They'll tell you the same thing. So what is the message so far? Plant growth and spiritual growth are synonymous. Okay? Ever heard the old expression, I am the vine, ye are the branches? It's in the Bible, by the way. Yes, Jesus said that. Think about it for a second. All right. The fact of the matter is that fruit grows better in sunlight. It's true. Fruit grows better in sunlight. And spiritual fruit will grow better in the light of God than without it. It's that simple. If you want to produce good spiritual fruit, be in God's sunlight. That's the way it works. You say, well, what's the problems with spiritual darkness? Well, let's take a look at physical darkness and see what the problems are. Do you know why hospital rooms always have windows and they try to bring in as much sunlight as they can? Well, here's the answer. One of the reasons they do that is because of something called seasonal affective disorder. Ever heard of it? Well, if you haven't, you are in luck, because I have a hyperlink down here that will tell you all about it. That's one of the problems with spiritual darkness. Okay? Now then, think about this for a second. More drunk driving collisions happen at night than they do in the daytime. Don't believe me? I have a hyperlink down here below that will show you that that's absolutely true. Here's another fact you probably never thought of. Robberies usually occur at night. Now, I didn't say there weren't any robberies in the daytime. There certainly were. But think about this for a second. First of all, if you want to know the fact that robberies usually occur at night, all you have to do is take a look at that hyperlink down below. That'll tell you that right off the bat. Now then, you say, well, some robberies occur in the daytime. Yes, they do. And those kind of robberies made Jesse James and Billy the Kid famous. They were so brazen that they actually did it in the daytime. That's why they became famous in the first place. See what I mean? But how many times do you hear about the famous robber that robs at night? That doesn't happen as often. I'm sure there's going to be some people say, well, look at this article, look at this article. That's fine. There are some exceptions to the rule. But usually robbers do not make the front page of the newspaper when they rob at night. They do if they rob in the daytime, though. That's true. Okay? And when do you think teenagers get hooked on smoking? Do you think that happens usually in the daytime? I'm not saying it never happens in the daytime, because sometimes it does. But usually, kids will conglomerate in the early evening or even at night. See what I mean? And that's usually when they get hooked. And think about this for a second. Do you think kids get hooked on smoking while standing in a cornfield? Usually not. But what about if they're standing in a alleyway? I mean, think about it. Where do gangs usually conglomerate? In dark alleyways. Not always, but usually. They'll conglomerate in dark alleyways. Why? Because there's less light. That's a fact. Streets that have poor lighting are usually less safe than streets that are well lit. Even parking lots, the same way. Why do they tell you to park in a well lit parking lot? Because you're safer under the light. Thieves and all kinds of other criminals are not as quick to dive into a well-lit parking lot and assault you and rob you. Doesn't usually happen that way. Some do, a lot don't. You see the message here? Now, the same thing that's true with physical darkness is also true of spiritual darkness. You don't want to be in a spiritual dark alley. You can do that. Let me tell you something. There are some people that go for the goth look. The goth look in itself is not the problem. But if you start pursuing the goth life, that could become a problem. That's the message. Now, here's another message for you. God, by his very nature, wanted you to work in the daytime and rest at night. Okay? You say, well, I would love to work in the daytime all the time, but I don't have the educational resources to get the kind of job that will force me to work in the daytime. Well, that's what this YouTube channel is all about. I'm giving you those educational resources so that you are more likely to work in the day than you are at night. Now, there are some jobs where you work mostly in the day and occasionally at night. Now, why do you want to avoid working at night on a regular basis? Well, ask anybody that's ever worked in a mine. I don't care if it's a gold mine, silver mine, salt mine, or a coal mine. Doesn't make any difference. Okay? There is just one point to all this. Those miners are more prone to health problems because they work in darkness so much of the time. That's one of the reasons why you want to work in the daylight. Here's another reason. If you're working mostly at night, where are you most likely going to go to after you get off work? Well, if you live in spiritual darkness, more than likely when you get off of work, say like 10, 11, or maybe midnight, where are you going to go? To the bar. Think about when bars usually make the most amount of money. They usually make more money at night than they do in the daytime. You can ask them yourself. You can find that out all by yourself. Well, if you're at home in bed at night, you are less likely to be in the bar. That's why you should do more of your work in the daytime and less of it at night. Now, either you can find yourself a job that is mostly day, or hopefully all the time daytime work, or you can become your own entrepreneur. That way you work by day and not by night, the way God wants you to work. But the only way that's ever going to happen is that you have to get yourself highly educated, and that's where I come in. And I help you get educated enough where you can end up in a job like this. See what I mean? Now, God is not against you taking an occasional moonlight walk. That is not a problem with God. God is not against you going to a 7 o'clock movie show, or even a midnight movie show once in a while. But God doesn't want you to get out your surfboard and try to surf the waves in the middle of the night every single night. That's not the way God wants you to do it. If you do it once in a while, that's not a problem. But if you do it all the time, God doesn't like that. See what I mean? Because like I said, there is a direct connection, a synonymous, okay, between physical darkness and spiritual darkness. It's not about doing an activity once in a while. Shoot, there are sometimes you go to festivals at 7 o'clock at night and you get out of there at 10 o'clock. Okay? That's cool with God, if that's what you do every once in a while. But if you make a habit of it, That's not cool with God. Okay? See what I mean? So, what you want to do is you want to find a way or a means to either work at a job which is mostly daytime, or create your own job, which is a mostly daytime job. Then you don't have to do that at night so often. Okay? Now, I know what it's like to stay up at night. Now, let me tell you something, you college kids, let me tell you this. I always hear this expression of the midnight oil. Don't burn the midnight oil. I would rather you watch my videos in the daytime and learn from me in the daytime than for you to burn the midnight oil. It's really not necessary, unneeded, unwarranted. You shouldn't get in the habit of it. Don't do the midnight oil, because what a lot of people do is they try to cram for exams in the midnight oil, and what they end up doing is they end up getting all kinds of things from tobacco to alcohol to something even worse. And we don't want you doing that. Because let's think about it for a second. More drug deals are conducted at night than in the daytime. That is a fact. You say, well, drug deals are conducted in the daytime. They are. But more of them are conducted at night than they are in the daytime. That is a fact. You can check this out for yourself. So if you don't want to get involved in that kind of a mess, take my personal recommendation. Try to find yourself a daytime job using the education I'm providing to you. Okay, you can't really do it on your own, but you can if you have my education backing you up. Now, am I done educating you yet? No, I am not. You're going to need a little bit more than what I've given you so far to get those kind of jobs. That's what we're working on right now. Okay? After a while, you will have finally enough skills from me. You will be able to find a mostly to totally daytime job, which is exactly what God would like for you to do. Okay? And I'm going to stick with this until you manage to pull that off. Either you'll find a daytime job, or you'll create your own daytime job. One of the two. But you're going to need my education to do it. You can't do this on your own. It doesn't work that way. Okay? And if you decide you don't want to use my education, at least find somebody's education that you can do this with. You're going to need to be educated to pull this one off. Alright. So the message is that if you use the education I'm providing to you, and you accumulate enough of it, you can either find yourself a mostly daytime job, which will make you a lot healthier, a lot happier, and is really what God wants you to do in the first place. Take a look at what the Israelites did back in the Old Testament. They conducted their business in the day. They usually didn't conduct business at night. As a matter of fact, the trial of Jesus was one of the biggest problems with the trial of Jesus was it was conducted at night, and it wasn't supposed to be. Don't believe me? You can look this up for yourself. That's what I'm talking about. There's proof positive that God doesn't want you working at night. But you have to do it with an educated manner. You can't do it without a good education. And that's what I'm here to give to you. Alright? And I'm going to continue giving it to you until you do find that daytime job or you create one of your own. Work in the day, rest at night. Work in the day, rest at night. That's what God wants you to do. And now you can see some reasons as to why God wants you to work in the day and rest at night. You're less likely to get into a drunk driving accident, you're less likely to go to a bar, and you're less likely to get yourself caught up in an armed robbery or a drug deal, amongst so many other things. And you're less likely to suffer from seasonal, whatever the heck it is, seasonal affective disorder. You're less likely to suffer that too. So, hopefully you got the message on this. And besides, God doesn't just want you to work in the daylight. he also wants you to live in an area that's not full of dark alleyways, and he doesn't want you in places that are just dark. Let me tell you this, okay? Just one last thing. Think about when raves occur, usually at night. And even when they do occur in the daytime, they're usually in buildings that are pitch black. You don't usually see a rave out in the middle of Timbuktu, full of sunshine, and the disco balls hanging out there. No, you don't see that. It looked kind of awkward if you had a rave out in the pure sunshine. Maybe there's some raves that occur on a beach, but usually your raves will occur at night in an enclosed building. That's usually dark. Don't believe me? Take a look at it for yourself. Does that mean you can never go to a rave? I wouldn't go as far as to say that. But I would say don't make a habit of going to raves. And even if you do go, don't get yourself involved with spiritually dark people. People that want to get you hooked on drugs and all kinds of things that you don't want to get involved with. Do you hear me, people? Alright. Hopefully you get the right idea on this. 1, use my education to get yourself into a mostly daytime job. You may have to work 1 or 2 nights, but usually you'll work in the daytime. That's the first thing I want you to do. First learn from me, then go get your daytime job. And if you can't do that, make your own daytime job, because you'll have the resources at that point to do that. Now, I'm providing those resources as fast as I can. I'm working on this day and night. It will take time, but I'll get it to you. Okay, so let's review. Step 1, take my education. Step 2, either find a daytime job or create your own daytime job. You'll be a lot better for it. And more importantly, do your best to not live near a dark alley or a dark area. Try not to get in the habit of going to raves. Try not to get in the habit of going to tons of nighttime. You can go to some nighttime festivals, but don't make a habit of it. Stay as much in the light as you possibly can. That's the message. Alright, I will tell you more in a future video. I want you to stay tuned.